Christmas has got to be one of my favorite times of year. I hope everybody enjoyed their Christmas and enjoyed the holidays and enjoyed hopefully some time off of work and hopefully a little bit of time with your family. I know it can be frustrating every once in a while. I definitely know that the Thanksgiving holiday for me particularly was stressful, and maybe it's because I made it that way, or you know what it always is? I think it's expectations. I think you have expectations for how things are going to go, or an expectation for what something should be, or maybe you have some sort of tradition that you've had from the past, or some beautiful memory that you've had of a holiday in the past, and then you try to compare this particular year to that year, and it seems like it's never the same, right? So it's like I hope everybody enjoyed their Christmas. Hope everybody enjoyed their holidays. I had to wait this year to wrap my son's presents. I think he was concerned he was going to get any at all, but he will. All of a sudden, right? I go to the tree. If I'm trying to put another present under there, or if I'm just walking through the living room, and I'll see that the corners are ripped, and so I look at it'd be a one present. I look at another present, corner is ripped, and I remember when he was younger, I'd ask him, I'd be like, "Hey, what's up with these? Do you know what happened to the presents?" And he'd be like, "Nah, man, not at all, no." And I'd be like, "Well, I'd remind him, it is just me and you here. So anything that happened that I didn't do, is likely could have came from you." And so when he was much younger, he would try to get away with it because I guess he didn't think the whole thing through. But now he'll just admit that he can't deal with the anticipation. He's just like, "No, I open them." He's like, "I open them prior to." And how do you deal with anticipation? Do you like to just get it over with? Do you like to just rip it off like a Band-Aid? Or do you prefer to wait until the holiday? My sister was like that. There was times when we were younger that she would actually take the present, she would completely unwrap it. So like, for instance, if my parents weren't home, like my mom and my stepdad weren't there, she'd take the present out from under the tree, unwrap it entirely, rewrap it in the same wrapping paper, and put it back. Before, she said most Christmases she knew all of her presents before the holiday. I think she would even unwrap mine sometimes, which is like, she couldn't even handle the anticipation of finding out what mine were gonna be. It's funny. I don't know if she'd care if I shared this, but one year she lost her mind, and it was all about the count, right? Like, for instance, my mom was maybe paying more close attention to either the amount, or maybe literally did forget my sister, but my sister thought she was forgot about because she got I don't know, some single digit amount of gifts, and then it was my stepbrother basically got a million gifts because his dad was buying them, and my mom wanted to make sure, of course, that she bought enough for him, so she ended up buying way more than my sister got it. So my sister was not excited about that. But I was just curious if you guys do you deal with anticipation well? Like, do you like to wait until the holiday comes, or do you like to I think it's important to give that person the genuine reaction, right? Because it's like, I mean, I don't want to be a negative, but sometimes it is a little underwhelming. But I think it's important to give the person the general reaction, right? Like, for instance, if you're opening a gift and somebody has worked so hard on it and you actually get excited about it, that's nice to see. Or, if you're the gift giver, I guess I'm speaking, you like to see somebody get excited about something. Yeah, that's funny. That kind of relates to that thing I talked about a few weeks ago, like fake laughing. I almost wonder how people feel. Do you feel like you have to give because of course when you're a kid and your grandparents are giving you stuff, and sometimes things aren't exactly what you wanted. Maybe they just didn't know, or maybe the generations are a little bit different. But you have to almost give a fake reaction of how excited you are about a gift. And I'm curious, have you ever had to do that? Have you ever give a fake reaction because maybe even your spouse gives you something that's not that exciting, but you have to play it up, maybe milk it more than you really think? I'd be curious to see what people think about that. Like, do you ever have to play it up a little more than you should? I always just like to wait. Yeah, give them the general reaction. Open it up on the day. I've never had a problem opening up my gifts. It's funny. One time, my sister actually, it's so silly because as you get older, you realize all the decisions you make you make, right? So it's like, it doesn't matter what's happening, you made those decisions. And so, for instance, the story has always gone, because I told it a lot when I was younger, and I didn't even really remember it until just now. But my sister made me open my presents early. But one morning we were waiting for my mom to get up. It was like Christmas morning, and we were so excited to get all of our presents. And she must have been up late, who knows why, right? And my mom was up late, and so she hadn't gotten up yet. And my sister was like, yeah, you're allowed to open your stuff. It's all good. Just go. You can open a present first. She's like, I'll open one. You open one first, and then I'm gonna open one. And then I had opened a present, and then she went and told my mom. She's like, Ethan opened a present early. And it's like, I felt so betrayed. That's so funny. There's so many times. This is neither here nor there. It has nothing to do with anything. But one time my sister told me that there was a Brother's Day. I was really, really young, and I used to follow her around, she was whatever. I'd follow her around all the time. And she told me there was a Brother's Day, and I was looking forward to it forever. And then I found out there wasn't one. And that was a heartbreaking day. But I guess, that reminded me this other heartbreaking day, unfortunately, where my sister tricks me into opening a present. But again, I made the decision to do it. I cracked the wrapping paper, and when she told my mom, she was right. I had opened a present. So do you guys wait? I'm even worse on the other end sometimes. Like, I can be way worse. I did that this year. Like, I really struggled. Like, I would rather give people, especially if I plan way in advance, I want to give them their present like right when I see them. I'm so excited, you know what I mean? Especially if I feel like I thought about it really well and I did a good job planning on it. I want to give these people their gifts like immediately. If I did a good job and I planned ahead and I'm getting ready to give them their gift, I can't wait to give it to them. So I'm almost worse on the other end, whereas like as a receiver, I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta wait till Christmas. That's what you do. It's funny, my grandpa, every year he just gives out cash. Every year he gives all of us an amount of cash, which is crazy. One year he said he wasn't gonna do it, and then it's like he had an epiphany the following year, and he was just like, I can't take it with me. And now he gives everybody just an amount of cash every year. But my point in saying that is everybody opens it early, and they'd be like, why don't you just open it? You know what I mean? And unfortunately, there's been years where I ended up having to, because it's like I can use the money to like buy my son presents, which is really convenient. Oh, you know what's funny? A couple times ago, I talked about my son having to go in and get a bid for his teeth, and it just reminds me of saying this because my grandpa's wonderful, just being so nice and being so thoughtful of everybody, and always remembering everybody's birthday, and always remembering the holidays. And he, like I said, he's said he can't take it with him, and so my son, his mom's insurance was only able to cover like $800 of his tooth bid. And so, again, that's like the same thing. I have to take it. It is my fault. I'm the parent. His mom took responsibility as well, but he ended up having $3,700 worth of cavity work. And it's like, I even asked, and I thought, and again, I shouldn't say again, but if say you had listened before, you would know that my mom actually lives with my son's mother. So for instance, both of them had said that that I was crazy for mentioning this, but isn't metal bad to put in your mouth? Like, for instance, I had mentioned also I had cavities, and I told my son that I didn't want him to feel bad because his mom said the dentist made him feel bad. And I'd be curious if anybody has any stories like that, because his mom said it was bad bedside manner, but I was like, dude, my dentist was the exact same way. It was like, I had 16 cavities. He told me, you're not taking care of your mouth, and he was stern with me. And so I was like, she was like, he should have talked to us. He should have spoke with us first and allowed us the opportunity to talk it over with him. But I think we were beyond that, and then so it ended up being $3,000 and $3,700, and the insurance is going to cover $800. So basically, we would have to cover $2,900. And what made me think of that is my grandpa was so awesome again and thoughtful, and he's actually going to cover that. He wrote a check for the dentist where he's going to pay that. And again, I thought I was crazy, and I couldn't come up with anything on Google right away except they said like magnesium. But for instance, when I had those issues with my teeth, my dentist, one time I did have insurance, and he was like, your insurance is only going to pay for metal, and we don't do metal here. He's like, we don't do that anymore. We only put, like, I think what's this, what, like old bones or something in your teeth. It's something that's white. So basically when you open your mouth, you don't have a bunch of silver and gold and shit in there. It's more like white colored. So I think it's bone that they put in there, but I don't know. But I was like, isn't that bad? And so the quickest thing I could come up with, I think it said like magnesium or something, like you get magnesium. But in the long and the short, he's the most going to have them like 5 years, right? Because most of them are they're all baby teeth. The most that he's going to have some of these molars are until he's 12 years old, 13 years old, right? And he's 7 years old. So he's going to have them for 5 more years. But it's just so nice of my grandpa to do that. It's so wonderful that he was willing to put that money forward, because geez Louise, can you imagine? Does anybody else have a story like that where like you thought your kid was brushing at least well enough, and then you go to the dentist and they're like, all right, it's going to be $3,700, please. Excuse me? What just happened? Yeah, your kid's teeth are disintegrating. They're completely going to fall apart, and you're a piece of shit. Thank you so much. $3,700? I was like, well, I'm clearly going to be putting that on a credit card. And again, I don't know. I guess my mom must have told my grandpa, but he was so nice to do that. But he's always done really well with giving us presents and stuff like that. And then I feel like once the holidays are over, everybody's just on like a mad dash for warmer weather. Maybe I should just speak for myself, because like my dopamine is like up, and then when I hit Christmas, I just hit a peak and I go back down, and then so it's like after New Year's, I'm like ready for warmer weather. I'm like tired of the snow, tired of the ice. We actually had less snow this year than I've ever seen. Like it was December, and it was completely warm. They said Denver, it was the latest snow on record ever, which is pretty crazy. So yeah, it's you're like, talking about your local weather in Colorado, and I'm listening to this from somewhere else. You should really go fuck yourself. No, I'm just kidding. But I feel like a lot of times once the holidays are over, it's just like I'm ready for warmer weather. I never do it anymore, and I only ever took my son once, but it starts making me think of like camping. We literally never go. One time I went just because like my dad and my sister and her husband had taken my sister's kids up to the mountains, and we weren't gonna go. We were just at the park that day, and we were looking at like going to a movie or something like that. And I asked Breck, I was like, "Hey, would you want to go camping?" And so we just on a whim like drove up there, and we had a heck of a time finding them, because, dude, I am pathetically in need of a phone. Like, I don't know if you've ever been without your phone and on a road. Like, for instance, there's a lot of places in Colorado, and this particular place that we went didn't have any cell reception. So we were going out there, and I thought we were going to a place that we'd been a long time ago, that we were going to when we were kids. And I'm like, yeah, I can scout that no matter what. I'm sure I can get there. I can't even believe I said scout. That's so... we'll just act like I didn't, and we'll pretend that I said something cooler than that. But I was like, I can find it, but they weren't in one of those places. They were in some place I'd never been to before, and I was just trying to do it on like directions that I heard before we even knew we were going to go up there. So the last time we went camping, and the only time I ever took my son and his cousins, they walked away. And so, like, for instance, I would always think that, like, when I was a kid and I was camping and my parents would just let me walk off into the woods, I always turned around, and if I could see the camp, then I felt like I was good. As long as I could see where the camp was, I was like, oh, I can easily walk back. So I was even up with them, probably at the point where you could still see the camp, and then they just kept walking, and I came back to the fire, and my sister's husband was like, "Where are they?" And I was like, "Oh, they're just walking." He's like, and he just, I guess, had a bad feeling or something. And I don't know how I was so stupid, but again, I always instinctually, because I'm so bad with direction, if I can see the camp, I wouldn't go that far from it. Like, I wouldn't go far enough to where I was going to be lost, but they were just going to keep walking. Like so that's my son's story from camping every time. He's like, remember when we almost got lost? And it's like, yes, I'm so thankful that my sister's husband decided to go after you guys. I didn't think for any reason they would go we just keep walking into the woods for no reason. I guess for no reason. We're camping. They just think they're mostly safe. I guess unless they ran into a bear or something, which would be absolutely awful. But thank goodness Colorado's releasing wolves, right? That'll make our next camping experience really exciting. No, I heard it's supposed to be the southern Colorado mountains. No, actually, I think people got unexcited about that, so they just decided that they were like, depending on how you file your taxes last year, all the yay voters. So, for instance, if you were a single voter, you're going to get a single wolf delivered, and then all the families will get a pack. So just imagine the fun that they'll have with your children and with your pets. It'll be great. No, I'm just kidding. But we're going to go to probably not do much camping, but my son always talks about that one particular time that he almost got lost, he says. And I can't imagine they would have actually got lost, but I guess he would have just kept going. I don't know. We pretty much never do it because it's like, I think about if I have time off, it's not necessarily the way I want to spend it is like roughing it. You know what I mean? And so many people will be like, dude, you are a pussy. That's ridiculous. Because it is really nice. I mean, I'll be honest. I really, really do enjoy it. Like one time, and the only time, that time that we went, we actually slept in my mom. She had an Avalanche at that time, so we drove her Avalanche up there, and so we slept just in the truck, and I still enjoyed it, which means I got terrible sleep. You know what I mean? I probably didn't get any REM cycle or real sleep. Realistically, I probably got no restorative sleep, and probably literally had a terrible night. But when we woke up, it was beautiful, and I enjoyed it, and so it is wonderful. You know what the funny thing is like, a lot of people come to Colorado, right? Like Colorado's an amazing place, and it's like, it's really weird. Like for some reason, a lot of people, I remember when we were younger or they would leave Colorado. So maybe other people do this too, because Wyoming can be beautiful. It's also super desolate, and maybe I just had all these bad experiences in it. But what the fuck? Who's he? What are you talking about? No, people would they'd leave Colorado and like go to, for instance, I remember as a kid and as a teenager again going to a place called Glendo. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it, but it's called Glendo, Wyoming, and there's a lake in Glendo. I apologize about that. People would also go to what's called, I think it's in like Nebraska. Isn't it like Lake McConaughey? But it's really weird. Like people actually leave Colorado to go camping in other places. I remember as a teenager, I shouldn't say as a really young kid, it just would try to give me an excuse, but we were idiots, and I don't recommend anybody do this, but like I think back in the day, and they may still have it, but like the top of 151 bottles, they had this little like silver strainer or something on it, and like of course I'm an idiot, so I tried to remove it, cut the top of the bottle, so we have this jagged edge 151 bottle that we're drinking out of. My friend decides to go try to do cliff jumping, and he literally probably fell with just a tiny, like he's just not straight up and down, with a tiny angle. He gets into the boat and he's spitting up blood. So just from the tiny angle of falling down the cliff and hitting the water, when it hit his chest, was enough impact to cause him to start spitting up blood. That's one of the first things that I remember. And then I remember just like literally roaming the beach, or you find out your eyes can deceive you so bad with water, right? I would like look across, like say a peninsula, and people be like walking. They have this place in Glendo called like Sandy Beach, so people just walk along Sandy Beach. And I remember there was this like bay, and I was like, dude, there's no way I'm walking around this bay. It's so big. And I was like, I can just easily swim across this. And then of course your eyes don't realize how far that is, because that lake is gigantic. And I was literally swimming with a handle. So I had a handle of Admiral Nelson, which I don't know if anybody's ever had it, but it's basically the cheap man's version of Captain Morgan. So I just have this handle of Admiral Nelson that I ended up basically almost having to stay in the water the entire day because I wanted to keep it underwater, and I'm just a dumbass young kid. And so like they walked around, they literally got a boat and came and picked me up while I'm trying to swim across this bay because I'm a fucking moron and I'm drunk, and I'm just like, oh yeah, I can make it. And that's I guess my memories of like camping and stuff when I was a kid. I don't know. You always find out like people's etiquette, I feel like, because you're almost like, if you're not in a super civilized place, you almost have like your own little civilization, right? So like when you're going out camping, you find out like what people everybody enjoys the fire, but not a lot of people want to go get wood. And it just seems like if you're going camping with the wrong people, you find out real quick when you're out in the woods and you're hauling the dead wood back and you're the one cutting it and you're the one sawing it and you're the one keeping the fire going, because everybody likes the heat. Everybody enjoys being able to cook on the fire, but not everybody wants to go into the woods and get wood. And so it's like you almost find how just, again, much etiquette your friends have. But that's where I say it's like, it's not every time I have like a vacation day that I want to go out and literally work my ass off to stay alive in the woods. No, it is beautiful. I love it. I love all the times. There's this place called Red Feather. Even just being able to drive to Red Feather, I love it. There's a million lakes out there. It's in Colorado. If you ever have a chance, go. It's beautiful. It's called Red Feather Lakes, Colorado. But my dad grew up there, and he was a wild kid. So he has so many stories. He has names for all the rocks, dude. We go around there, and he'd be like, yeah, these are the three sisters. He'd be like, these are the three sisters here. I remember a party that I had in this area. And so my dad has these just amazing stories. Like one time... I apologize for continuing to clear my throat. We went to this place actually, and I thought that it was just like something that he knew about, and I almost thought he was full of shit, but I looked him up. So like, I guess a long time ago, right? Before they had, I guess, technology and stuff like that, to keep an eye on wildfires and forests, they would build these just gigantic stands, right? So one of these things that my dad would tell me about is this place up in the woods that was like, they call it Dead Man Lookout. And since he was a kid, it hadn't necessarily been used. I shouldn't say necessarily. It hadn't been officially used since he was like a kid in the 70s. And I almost thought he was full of shit, because he was like, no, it's this huge tower that you can just see the woods for miles and miles and miles. And I was like, that sounds crazy. But he was like, dude, my dad is like, they have that, he always, I shouldn't relate it to it, because it's probably not relating to it now. But at the time, like 10, 15 years ago, when I would watch that show Family Guy, my son's mother made me stop watching it. She made me feel like a piece of shit. She was like, cartoons? You watch cartoons? And so I stopped. And so my point is, when I would watch that show Family Guy, there was this one episode where he would, there was like mustache person or whatever the fuck. I don't remember what Peter was doing, but he had a mustache, and he had like a different rules for life and a different way of acting. And my dad oddly has a mustache, and he has these crazy rules. Like, for instance, he let us drive to this place called Dead Man's Lookout. So like the reason I say that is because like my son is 7. So again, I finally started hanging out with my dad when I was like almost 9 or 10 or whatever. That's when he got out of prison. And then so he let us drive. Like, he let me and my sister take turns driving to Dead Man's Lookout way before I had my license, way before I had my permit. And he just thought it was normal. You know what he even said? He was like, he was like, you know what's different about this? He's like, my dad would keep the windows rolled up, have a cigarette going, turn off the engine, put it in neutral, and tell me we had to use that to save gas. So his dad was like, I think I'm a cheapskate, and he says he was just way worse. You can actually look him up. It's crazy. They have some of his like records for some reason at CSU. CSU is Colorado State University. It's in Fort Collins. They have some of his records like sealed for some reason, which I think is really weird. But he's my grandpa. He was a professor there for like over 20 years, and he got tenure and started saying a bunch of crazy stuff. He was a sociology professor, but yeah, some of the things they have there, they'll be like, this is like taken out, like information is taken out when you try to look it up. And I'm like, God, that is so weird. Why am I talking about him? Just because like I was thinking about how my dad let us drive up to that place. But those places are super cool. I think there's actually some that are still in use, even considering all the technology that we have and everything, because of the amount of wildfires that we have. I think there's some wildfire lookout towers, which I thought that's what they were called, wildfire watchtowers, but I guess they're called fire lookout towers. So yeah, I thought they were called wildfire watchtowers because that seems like it would go better, but I guess they're called fire lookout towers. So these fire lookout towers are sometimes still in use, but I think that's pretty cool. So I remember my dad, that's just one of the things I remember from camping as a kid, and being able to go up there, and he actually let us drive, which again, I would never let my kid drive. That's crazy. I can't imagine that. And again, he would just say that like, well, it's, you get to use the gas and you get to use the acceleration, where my dad would just make me use the hills going neutral, which If you look, this guy was, yeah. Again, I think I'm a cheap ass, but he was able to outdo that for sure. But I'd be curious if anybody else has any good camping stories. Or like I said, a lot of people from Colorado would literally leave Colorado, but they would a lot of times go to like lakes. So it's like Colorado is obviously the most beautiful. I shouldn't say the most beautiful, but very beautiful. And then some people go to Wyoming, which is still beautiful. It's just got a different set of rules. Dude, they would fuck with us out there. People would always say it. Literally, they would look at your boat. They were like, they have a, I don't know. I looked it up one time, and apparently there was like a long-standing thing, and they would call Colorado's greenies. So like people from Wyoming would call Colorado's greenies because our plates a long time ago in Colorado, they were just green and white, green on the bottom, white on the top. Now they have a version of that, but it's like white on the bottom and green on the top, and then they have a shitload of specialty plates, which I think every state seems to be doing that now. But we would no idea why I'm talking about that. No single idea. Oh yeah, I mean, I guess just because people will go to lakes. But I don't know how it has anything to do with license plates. That's insanity. I don't know why I don't remember that. But oh yeah, they would just mess with people. So like for some reason, and we had learned this because like year after year, I had this kind of I shouldn't say kind of. I had a very wealthy family. His parents worked their asses off. His mom developed her own cleaning business. She was an entrepreneur. She was amazing. I actually can't believe how much shit they dealt with from me. You know, it's actually amazing. Like, I don't know if people see it or not, but I actually have a scar on my face. So like I have a scar. I was on their house and I was on top of a fence. So like they had this wooden fence, and my friend a couple weeks earlier, he had been having a snowball fight there. And when they were having the snowball fight, one of the planks of the fence went down. And I think he said he didn't want to get in trouble for it. We found out like months later. So he just set the wood plank back up, and so I'm standing on the top of this fence. It was actually the stupidest thing. You know, I thought it was the stupidest thing, but then I've seen my son do it. But I was literally just trying to say, like, I'm taller than you. And this girl, because this girl got on the smaller part of the fence, and she was like, I'm taller than you. And so I got on a bigger part of the fence, and I was like, I'm taller than you. And I'm like the tallest person, so it was so stupid because I would have been taller than everybody no matter what. But I literally, my son did that to me one time. He was on something taller, and he was like, I'm taller than you. And I was like, oh, I guess kids do that. But I stepped on that plank that had been just placed up there. So I fell down. So, you know, I was probably like 5 feet tall, at least at the time or whatever. And when I fell down, it knocked one of my teeth out, and my whole face was literally hanging off. I couldn't look at it. They were like, do you want to look at it? And I was like, no, I don't want to look at it. And I used to have literally like an imprintation of the wood, because it was like a timber. It wasn't like that wood, the thin wood plank fence. It was like a timber, you know what I mean? And the reason why I say this is because it happened at those people's houses. But they would always like take us to Glendo, and they were so awesome. But we had found out over the years that we went to Glendo, Wyoming, to this lake, that like the people seemed like they didn't like people from Colorado. And so they would always stop our boats. And what they do if a ranger stops your boat is they check and make sure that you have every single thing on the boat safety list. And so like there was years, of course, that we didn't, because that's crazy, because not everybody carries everything every time. But this time they had way more than they needed. Like, for instance, more life vests than the amount of people on board, and like, you know, working fire extinguishers and all that stuff that they check like to make sure that you have all these things, just to, it almost seems like mess with you, but it doesn't. Yeah, you know, one time they actually took me, the first time I ever knee boarded, I was behind their boat, and this girl was like, you know, the most important thing you want to remember if you're knee boarding is don't let go. She's like, that's the problem I always have. And I should realize she's like 5 feet tall, probably not even 5 feet tall, even the tallest she ever got. And she's like, don't let go. So I immediately lose the knee board out from under my knees. So this is not in Glendo, it's at their lake in Colorado, but I'm immediately underwater. The knee board has gone out from under my knees, but I don't let go. My eyes are open completely wide, and I'm just underwater, like trying to take on like full water underwater. And I finally realized, oh, I should let go. This is not the best idea. And that was one of the things that they dealt with me. They also dealt with me. My dad showed me this trick, and he probably shouldn't have. And he did a lot of things he probably shouldn't have, but I guess that was the nice thing about not meeting him until I was like 9 or 10 years old. he showed me this thing where you can like flick a bottle cap, right? And so I learned how to do it with change really well. And I remember one time I did it to my friend, their child, and it knocked out one of his teeth. It chipped off one of his teeth. And dude, they didn't even like try to, you know what I mean, like take me to court or, you know, ask us to give them the money for it or anything. They were so nice. I just think about that like years later. Like if somebody, my son all of a sudden came home and he's like, yeah, my friend at the park knocked my tooth off, you know, I would be like, are you, you know, actually it's funny. I literally just said like how much it blew my mind that we had $3,000 worth of dental bills after insurance. I'm like, this is ridiculous, but I got to use the bathroom. I'll be right back. I'll talk to you guys soon. Doesn't it seem like everybody has a story? Everybody's got a story on Instagram. Not that kind of story, but it seems like everybody's got a story about how Instagram has recently blocked their material of some kind. And it's funny, I was like thinking like I never do anything risque, I never say anything ridiculous, so I decided to look, and it actually looks like I have had a comment that was banned, and I do remember it, but it was so ridiculous that I was like, I almost didn't even think about it, right? So like for instance, you guys would probably even know them if you're experiencing with YouTube, but Christina P, she had changed her hair at one time, right? So she just got those bangs, and so the period of time that she got her bangs, I tried to make a comment on her Instagram, and I actually had said, nice bangs, ombre, right? So it's like weird ass thing to say, right? I looked to see if I had any things, and so for instance, I had a comment that had been removed, and you know why they removed it? They said I was exploiting sexually explicit material. So they thought, and it literally said it's already been reviewed and this is the decision that's been made. So again, I didn't even realize that it happened. I remember it happening, that they said you can't post this, but I didn't think that anything had came of it. But so I looked, and apparently I do have one thing on my record that says, yeah, I tried to make a comment that said nice bangs, ombre, which again, stupid thing to say. I was just trying to say her bangs did look sexy, so like I wanted her to know, right? But I think that's a ridiculous thing because, like I said, even the reasoning that they said it had already been reviewed was I was promoting sexually explicit content. Good thing I can talk. It's a great thing I can fucking talk. At least I can't fucking get a word out. That's fantastic, right? Jeez Louise. But my point in saying is I think they thought when I said bangs that it had something to do with sex, which I understand that it could, but who's reviewing these things? Like, is it a robot that reviewed it? Because anybody that would look, especially if they looked at the photo that the comment was made on, she had just gotten a new haircut. I'm just trying to say she looks hot. Like, it's not anything that should be ridiculous. They said I was, that thing that I can't seem to fucking say. I should have written it down, but it's ridiculous, so I just didn't know if anybody else has got a story. It seems like you talk to anybody and they do, and I thought I didn't even have one, but then I looked it up and turns out I do, which is crazy. And I guess it just it shows up on your if you go to your profile. So when you go to your profile, mine had been unchecked, for instance, so I didn't know it. So like my review had been unchecked, so it was there like as a red thing, like something I needed to check and look at. But it just seems like everybody's got some story about where they posted something on Instagram and it didn't seem to get as far as it should have, or even get anywhere, just because, again, in my case, it seems like I don't know how that could be misinterpreted. I thought, like, it doesn't matter what I thought, but who cares? I just like banging my arm on stuff. No, I apologize. I was burping. I didn't think it would be pleasant. You're like, yeah, no, dude, we all have indigestion. It's no big deal. Don't want to hear it into the mic, but that's nice that you had indigestion. I remember on one of my episodes I had said that I was like, I should try to make a whole, well, I shouldn't say I should try to make a whole, I had mentioned one of the previous hotel jobs that I had, and I was like, geez, that's an episode in itself. I didn't really take any time to think about it, but I would say the one thing that had came up when I thought about it is like, you probably don't realize, or maybe you do realize, I personally realize now, about how often some of the rooms have literally just been cleaned seconds before you walked in them. And it's funny, I like told my mom that, and she was like, well, that's wonderful. That's so great. So and it's like, no, the idea is you're already standing there waiting to check in. They literally are just walking out of your room. But the biggest thing I thought is, I bet any hotel you walk in, because I guarantee, I shouldn't say I guarantee, I should just say I've walked in thousands and thousands of rooms in my years of hotel, of inspections and of setting things in rooms prior to visits. You know, for instance, sometimes you put some special gift in there or something for somebody, like somebody special's coming into your hotel and you want to let them know how great they are. So you go into the room and like literally one time actually, the reason why I said this is because, like, in that particular thing, I was like, well, I can make that an entire episode. And again, I didn't do any work on that. There was one time that I went in just to put a gift in a room, and it was marked clean and ready, and it had trash strewn everywhere. And so I called my boss because I guess I say I was because a mature person would look at it and they'd take the entire picture in and they would look at it, and my immediate thing was, I'm being sabotaged. The fact that this room is marked clean and ready, so vacant, basically somebody's about to check into it. It was even one of our, like, again, I was going in there to put a gift in there, so it was like one of our high class guests, and it was completely thrashed. And so my boss says, we'll do a key check so you can check like who were all the people and what keys have entered the lock. And so it was this one guy was one of the people that was in there, and he didn't want to admit that. He never admitted that. When I confronted him about that, because that was really the only evidence I have, and he said it was the other 3 people, but it was 2 people was the same key. It was the housekeeping inspector, and the one before that was the housekeeper. And so the housekeeper went in there to clean the room. The housekeeper inspector went in there twice. She said to check the room. She said the room was perfect. Then he went in there. Then I went in there 3 times, and he said he was one of mine, and I was like, no, those are all my key. That's all my key right there, because I walked in there first, was blown away, went and talked to the housekeeper. She said that it was ready and clean. His reasoning was his name was not on the Dunkin' Donuts cup. He said, those aren't my initials, as if because he didn't put his initials or his initials weren't on the coffee trash, that it wasn't his. But it was a tough situation to be in on the other side, where like somebody was literally ready to check in there, and had I not been going in there to put a gift in there, somebody else would have checked in. So that's just like one thing I would say is you probably don't realize how often your room is just completely disgusting. Like, dude, or like people, they bring dogs in when they're not supposed to, and then they say, well, he's normally good. It's the only time he's ever gone to the bathroom and lost track of himself. And of course that smells forever. So for instance, we just like try to put just the trashiest, like either you're calling a professional, which sometimes you can't get immediately, or 2 is going to cost you as if I said 1, or it's going to cost you a lot of money. So you're just doing some of the cheapest remedies. Sometimes my boss's boss would actually tell us, he'd say, go to Walmart, get that. They have this like baking soda pet stuff at like Walmart, and he would just make us like buy it, but then it fucked up all the vacuums, and so they were like, you can only use these fucked up vacuums for it now. And so, you know what I mean? Like, and it's funny. I even mentioned that a couple times ago. I was like, well, I feel like every time I travel with my son, it smells like piss. And I'm literally telling a story about on the other side where we would have dogs come in and literally leave obvious messes that we would just completely try to hide. And of course we need to sell that room right away. But the one thing I was going to say is all the times that I went into rooms, over 90%, and everybody says statistics are fake, but I found hair. And I bet if anybody looked, you'd be blown away how often you find hair. I just would say hair anytime. It's crazy, and until I've even seen it in my own house. And so people say it's from the blow dryer, but sometimes it's even on the ceiling. Sometimes you go in the bathroom and there's hair on the ceiling, and nobody thinks of that. And dude, these girls, you wouldn't, and I say these girls because predominantly for people that do housekeeping in hotels are girls. It's ridiculous. It's disgusting. They are allowed some ridiculous amount of minutes. I mean, it's unacceptable. Literally, and then that's the whole thing. That's their whole metric is how fast can you clean these rooms? So you had 10 rooms and you spent this many minutes. You should next month, can we get 2 minutes less? And then if you do great, Next month, can we get 2 minutes less? And they're just like, dude, my point in saying that is they don't have a good amount of time. They're expected to do this insane amount of cleaning in a tiny amount of time. So they don't have the time to get this stuff. So it's not even their fault. It's the whole system's fault. It's the fact that the corporate office wants more and more and more revenue. Everybody's measured by the amount of minutes that they clean their room without even the thought ever of like, did some disgusting pig come in here and eat in the bed and never throw away any trash and go throw things everywhere and literally treat this place like disgusting? Ooh, that's another thing that I think people have probably let out these secrets, but like those covers, the top cover, they almost never clean that. Because it's a pain in the ass, and they don't have that many of them. They cost a lot of money. Yeah, that's, I guess, some of the things I was thinking I should have prepared, made an entire episode, but I didn't. Is some of the things that come up is like, I bet you could, if you look close, and you probably don't want to, but almost any time you ever check into a hotel, even the best of them, I mean, depends on what you think the best of them are, I guess, too, but you'll find hair. You know what I mean? Because even, I don't know, there are some great ones, and they even do some really cool stuff. You know what I mean? And then you wonder, like, when you go in at these fancy places, when they're like, your toilet paper isn't a fucking swan or whatever, and you're like, but then I have hair on. Like, thank you for the swan. Thank you for making my toilet paper a swan, but if you could just get the pubes off the toilet, we'd be way good. We'd be totally good. Or like the gummy fucking soaked in the refrigerator door. I don't know. Yeah, whatever it is. I remember, it's funny, we wouldn't even stay at a hotel. My dad, again, he was totally different rules. He would allow us to stay at his house. He lived right off 16th Street in Denver, so we lived near Denver, Colorado, and my dad lived, there's this place called the 16th Street Mall in Denver, which used to be a lot cooler. I know that prior to, like, being able to shop online and get everything you want delivered to your door in 1 or 2 days, you would go to the 16th Street Mall. And so, like, the 16th Street Mall was a big deal, and even way younger than we should have been going up there. But basically, as soon as I got a license, and my dad lived, 4 or 5 blocks. Oh my goodness, I probably said this before. I don't know if I said this. I went to that area I think a year ago now, so probably about last December, so December of 2020, so just over a year ago. It was so many tents. I haven't been down there in a while, but it was just complete homeless. It was crazy. So it didn't look like that back then. We would literally walk from my dad's house all the way down to 16th Street. And I have this one memory where we were walking down, and I think years later I was like, oh, those were drug dealers. Those were well, he even we're walking down and this guy goes, snakes for sale, and we're like, nah man, we can't buy any snakes. And he's like, weed for sale. Like, oh okay. I didn't get that. I didn't realize this was that's how you do it. So yeah, you're supposed to you know what I mean, be a little more undercover, I guess, be a little smarter. But nowadays, geez Louise, one, I would not let my kid do that, which is probably terrible. He's not going to have those skills that he needs to navigate the world. And then two, like I said, the last time I had been there, the amount of homelessness was ridiculous. I mentioned it to the woman I was meeting with because nobody cares. She had just had her roof done, and she thought she was getting ripped off. And I was like, I would have charged you more. And it wasn't a big deal. She was doing insurance. So, like, insurance, literally, we go through a list that says how much they're going to pay. And I was like, they installed more than insurance paid for. I was like, so you're in good shape. So point being, I literally drove to Denver for pretty much nothing except to see all that ridiculous amount of homeless. Dude, I've been trying to meditate more lately. I know I need to do it. I was even talking to my son's mom at my mom's house like a week or two ago. And I was talking about how she goes out to smoke all the time, right? And she still hasn't quit smoking. And I'm like, so you literally, in a sense, meditate 10 times a day, right? Because you're taking at least 8 to 10 minutes, at least 10 times a day to go smoke a cigarette. And I was like, if I even just did it one time, I feel like I would be better off. But sometimes doesn't it feel like if you, like, one, I can't tell anybody about it. It's like I feel like if I share that with anybody and they feel like you don't deserve it, right? Like oh, you have time to meditate. And it's like, even literally anybody that I would tell that, it's funny, all these people probably smoke cigarettes. So, like, in a sense, again, they do a sense of meditation where they're just going away for 8 to 10 minutes and just breathing. They're just not breathing air, which is what I would be doing, and amongst other things. But I don't know, man. I just feel like I try to, it almost seems like too, if I am like, well, I'm working on myself and I'm in a better state, the world is just like, bliss this motherfucker. They just come at me with like new things. It's like your car is no longer working. You're not going to have an engine. So that's a pessimistic way to look. But my point in saying that is I just need to meditate. I need to find time to do it. I know everybody probably is like, that's ridiculous. Or again, they're on the other side where they're like, you shouldn't be making time for that. But it's 10 minutes. Again, it's 10 minutes. And it's like, if you're a smoker, you do that a million times. I'd be curious to see how many people do you guys try to practice mindfulness, as they call it. That's what my sister calls it. I try to talk to her about it. I'm like, do you meditate? And she's like, oh yeah, mindfulness is important. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. That's the truth. You should tell me what you think. You know what I had a weird dream about, which I don't know if it's appropriate, but she'll never listen to this, so it's not a big deal. She's got to be older than me, and I only say that because she said that her son was 15, and so that makes me think that he's got to be a little bit older, or if, otherwise, like for instance, I'm 32, so say she was my same age, and her son was 15, she would have had him when she was like 17, and so that just seems like less likely. But I had a dream about my son's teacher, and I don't know why. Sometimes when like I'll go to pick him up, like she'll come out and like, what are those things those girls call? Is it like wedges? Is it wedges? I'm not gonna look it up, but it's like a heel, right? But it looks like a cork or whatever. It's like big on the front and small on the side. Like, it just seems like I remember buying for my son's mother. Like, I thought I was cool, and I was like, ooh, I'm going to buy her shoes. I was like, girls love shoes, and she would always talk about that. She'd be like, I love heels. Like, I wear heels all the time. So I bought her two, I think they're called wedges. I could be completely wrong. And at the time, I just thought they were called heels. She said she loved heels, so I bought her those things. They look like cork, but they're like nice sandals. My point in saying that is she never wore them, never once wore them, and I'm not here to complain about that. But my son's teacher will come out wearing these, and I'm like, they're huge. So like, she would always say like, I can't wear them. They hurt my ankles. I'm gonna have something bad. And most girls will say that. And then to see his teacher coming out in these shoes, I'm just like, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't be dreaming about her. Maybe, but I thought more about it. So like, my point in saying that is, I think, of course, I've noticed the shoes, and again. She's not my age. She's probably married. It's not even like it's like that. But I started thinking like, why would I be dreaming about her? And some people would probably just say, dude, our dreams are unexplainable. You know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't matter. And sharing it with people, nobody gives a shit. But I don't know. She like takes care of her hair really well. So like, I don't know, maybe that's why. You know what I mean? It's always like well taken care of. Like, it's like clearly cut on a consistent basis, where it's like, I don't know, some people don't cut their hair for years, or maybe I've just seen too many hippies in Colorado, but whatever it is. I don't know. And another thing, it seems like anybody, like, so for instance, even at my age, like, she's super thin, right? So it's like, it seems like anybody that's still thin at an older age, there's no way that's your metabolism. You're doing something, right? So you're like at least taking care of yourself. So those are all my theories. Again, maybe there's no reason why we have our dreams, but I just thought it was super weird. I was like, those are the things I can think of. It's like it's impressive that she wears those shoes. She really takes care of her hair. She's really thin, so she obviously takes, but I don't know. Weird, right? I dream about my son. That's not supposed to happen. Again, it doesn't matter. She'll never see this. It's not a big deal. Dude, how far do you like to take your pants off when you go to the bathroom? Like, when you have to sit down to go to the bathroom, I get super cold, right? So like, I like to set up the space heater. I like to have a space heater in there if I can, and I'll even only take off I take it off of one leg completely, right? Because if you sit down and you have your pants still on, you can't separate your legs, you know what I mean? You can't pull them apart. So I have to take one leg completely out, and then I'll put the space heater on one side of me so it keeps me warm, but I get too cold. And I was just curious if that's weird. Do you know what I mean? Do people normally just keep their pants on and sit in that one? It's just too constrictive. It's not something that I can do. I wonder what most people do. What do they, you know what I mean? What's the easiest thing to do? I think My son takes everything completely off. He doesn't even keep one on. He takes everything completely off, like before he even goes in the bathroom. But he is young. He's like only well, we're both young. That's dumb. That's stupid. We're both young, but he he takes everything off before he even leaves his room. He'll like throw it all off in his room and run into the bathroom. So I imagine one day he'll have to stop doing that. But lately he's been telling me stories that don't add up, man. Like just the other day he was like, yeah, man, I had this huge bruise on my knee, and I'm like, oh man, buddy, what happened? And he's like, well, I just leaned on this seat cushion and I have a bruise. And I'm like, maybe that's when you noticed it, but it's very rare that we put our knee against a soft piece of cushion and then we end up with a bruise. I was like, typically I have to get harder hit than any time normally to experience a bruise. And that's his story and he's sticking to it. And it's just like, I'm sure I'm not the only person as a parent that experiences that. Like, do you get stories from your kids where they're just it's like the thing I talked about at the very beginning, where like when he was younger with the presents, he'd be like, nah man, nope, I have no idea who did that. Nope, no clue who pulled off that wrapping paper. But now he'll just be like telling me stories, you know what I mean? Like it's a different level because he doesn't realize, like, well, I don't know. I'm just concerned, right? It's like I'm not trying to be stupid or be ridiculous. It's just like I'm concerned. Like, why do you have bruises? You know what I mean? What's going on? And I'd rather just figure it out or just have him tell me, you know what I mean, than be concerned about it. It's just one of those things where, I don't know. He's not as bad as I was when I was a kid. I was terrible. Dude, I remember my friends would always ask me why, right? Because like, and again, I remember one time saying that I hope my son watches these someday, but if he does, I hope he's old enough to realize that this is a terrible idea and you should never do this. But I would like, my friends would pull up in their car, right? Because like they would I'd sneak out and they'd come to pick me up, obviously when I'm much younger, and I wouldn't have any clothes on. I'd be like, dude, what the fuck? Why are you not dressed? But like, I remember my son is clearly not as bad as me, because what I would do is I would take my screen out of one of my windows and I'd throw all my clothes out the window, right? Because then if my parents caught me, I'd try to be as quiet as I possibly could. But we had a situation where even to get down the stairs, their master bedroom was at the bottom of the stairs, so I had to walk right past their bedroom. Then I had to go into the garage, and then I had to go through another door in the garage to get out. So that was basically the quickest way. But at any time, if they heard me or came out, I wanted to just be able to say, oh, I'm just grabbing food or something, or I'm checking the dogs real quick. You know what I mean? So because basically if I had just my underwear on, there was no way that they could say, well, you're sneaking out. So I would throw all my clothes out the window and then I would pick them up when I got outside, and then I would, of course, take them to my friend's car and get dressed as we were going to sneak out. So hopefully my son never gets that bad. Hopefully he never has a story that's comparable to that. But dude, I remember one time my friend had a party, and it basically, you know what's funny? It's the exact same person I was mentioning earlier that I fucked up my face for the rest of my life, and that like I had hit his tooth with that coin. His parents were out of town. They were actually probably at a lake somewhere, and they had bought cases upon cases of Coors Light. So they just had got a really good deal from somebody. The funny thing is, it's probably somebody that we all know that owns a liquor store. Who knows? It could be anybody. The reason why I say that is because we all know this particular guy that owns multiple liquor stores, and maybe the product was going to go bad sometime soon or whatever it was. We were throwing a party. I shouldn't say we. I got to enjoy a party that their kid threw at their house while they were out of town, and they had these just cases of Coors Light. So we were like, dude, nobody's going to notice if we take one case. And their neighbors were actually also out of town with them, or I don't remember if they were with them, but they were both out of town. So we take a full case of 24 bottles of Coors Light, warm. Obviously, they haven't been cooled because they just put them in the fridge when they're going to cool them, and they have so many cases they can't keep them all cool, so they have them all in their basement. We put them out the window well, so that way we're not looking as if we're not assholes. We're fucking literally stealing from our friends' parents. You know what I mean? Jeez Louise. But we put it out the window well, and then we walk outside and we get it almost similar to the way I would sneak out. And we take these warm ass beers, and I remember just sitting like not on their deck because we were scared that people would see us up there, but we sat just like down at the base of the deck, like where it meets the ground, and just drank warm beers. And the stupid things that you do. Like now I can barely even bring myself to finish a beer because I feel like a piece of shit. I'm just like, God, this is so much. You know, it's like even when I would drink a lot, I seemed like I would drink a lot of hard liquor because I was like, man, I can't. You know what I mean? It's like you get yourself in trouble where, like, if you drink mixed drinks and they have a lot of sugar in them or something, you have way too much sugar. Or if you're drinking like a lot of beer, then you have like way more, whatever it is. It depends on what your system is bothered by. But beer is full of all kinds of stuff, and especially if you're drinking those like micro brews. And I wish that was the only time that we drank like warm beer. But I remember another time that like my friend, I picked him up before school, and yeah. I don't recommend anybody do this, but we were terrible. We were fucking morons. Like, I don't know what the idea was there. Like, yeah, before we go learn things, we should get smashed. But, like, I wasn't smart enough to keep the beer somewhere where it would be cool. Like, almost similar to that time where we took it from my friends and we drank the warm beer at his neighbor's house just sitting in the yard at the base of the deck. But we had warm King Cobra. And so it had sat in my little Ranger, and I would try to hide alcohol behind the seat because I thought my parents wouldn't find it there. But it was like on a hot, hot summer day. And I don't know if you've ever had liquored up beer, but it's the worst thing in the world to begin with. So then the fact that it had sat in a hot summer heat and not had a chance to cool down, the next morning before school, we're trying to drink it. The amount of times that I puked in my mouth, the amount of times that I had it come back up and had to try to swallow it. Like, I don't know I do know what we were thinking. When you're that age and you're younger than you should be drinking, it's like whatever you can get. You know what the funny thing is, and I probably said this, and it doesn't matter if I did or didn't. By the time I turned 21, I like was over drinking. I was like, I remember we like went to a bar and I had like one drink with my mom that day. Like we didn't even go to a bar that night when I turned 21. It like wasn't even a big deal because I drank like a moron prior to. It was like, you know what I mean? Like I said, like by now I feel super over it, but you know, it's occasions do arise as I've mentioned in previous times. But I wish that was the only time I could say that I'd done that. But unfortunately, that hot King Cobra was probably the worst memory I had. Again, I would keep it either behind the seat or like sometimes in Colorado, I had this two-wheel drive Ranger. So if anybody's ever driven a two-wheel drive Ranger, you know the only thing you have is these two wheels in the back and there's literally zero weight back there. So I would fill it up with snow. And then, of course, rather than hiding the beer behind my seat, I would try to put it in the bed of my truck. So I'd have all this snow filled up in there so that way I'd have weight on my wheels. So I mean I'd still have super squirrely tires and there was nothing safe about it. And then I'd put the beers in there. I was a total moron. I would take all these beers and I would jam them into the snow in the back of my seat. I remember like my friends would text me or call me while I was in class and they'd be like, dude, you just have a bunch of beers in the back of your truck. And I'd be like, oh because I'd completely forget. And then of course thawing occurs, so you have like no more snow or ice in the back of your truck and you just have a bunch of beers. And if any of the campus officers or whatever had walked by, I would have just been having some splaining to do, that's for sure. But one time I left a friend in the bed of my truck. That was probably even worse. Like I had we were morons, dude. We were fucking morons. Like we would leave and there was this area that's completely developed now. It's all completely homes and everything, but we would just drive out to this like field, this like desolate field, and just sit in the back of my truck and just drink alcohol like fucking morons. And then we went back and he was in the back of my truck and I didn't take my car back to school because I didn't want, the teachers to come up to him or anything. I guess to say less, he got so fucked up that he was passed out in the back of my truck and I'm a moron. And I was like, I have to get back to class. But then when I got out of class, I was also so fucked up, I didn't remember where I parked my truck. So I forgot that I had parked it like out in a street away from the school, and I left my friend in the back of it. So I guess beer is not the worst thing I've left in the back of it. I left a friend in the back. It's funny, he said that was the best football game he ever played, but he literally puked his brains out. Like, my other friend and his sister like threw him in the shower and like tried to give him a pep talk about how much of a piece of shit he was for like going out and drinking on a game day. And yeah, it was a terrible influence, but I had got injured, so I wasn't playing anymore. But dude, I have one more point I have to make, but I'll be right back. It's not a point. I shouldn't say point. I have no points. The one thing that I wanted to talk about has anybody realized, and maybe I'm the only one, and maybe it's totally me, and I'm ridiculous, and maybe I have no place to talk about it, but what the fuck has happened to women's bathing suits? Is anybody seen this? Is there not like an additional 3 or 4 inches? Like, okay, you know what's funny? I don't want to sound like this. You can tell me if I sound like this, but my grandpa made comments about how ridiculously low the bathing suits were when I was a kid. Like, he's like, but of course, you know what I mean? Like, he was born in the 30s or whatever. So it's like, yeah, he's gonna think he's 78 right now. So however old that makes him. However many years that was. My point in saying that is, I don't hope that I'm not sounding like the old man, but doesn't it seem like there's like 3 or 4 inches beyond what you need? Like, okay, if you're one of these people that has like a muffin top, and I don't know why I must be scared to talk about him. I must not be willing to get up on the mic. I don't know why I'm backing away from the mic. No, I guess I am a little nervous. Not like any herds of women. Herds? Not like any groups of women are gonna come after me. But if you had like a muffin top, I could see where this extra 3 or 4 inches would be nice, because you tuck all that in, right? But I see like thin models, like the new thing is they have like an additional 3 or 4 inches. Why is that the style? Who decided that that's the new style? Is everybody follow that? Is it just the people I've seen? I swear I've seen models like, who's that girl that was in that movie Missy with Nick Swartzen, the one that's got the Molly Sims? I saw her, right? And she's beautiful. She's thin. She's super funny. She's a mom. She's got relatable stuff. She's even like, so attractive people that are in with the times are wearing like 3 or 4 extra inches. Like, I don't understand it. What is that? Why? It's like, yeah, if you have, is that what people call like the fupa? If you have the foot, I should look it up because I shouldn't say that. It's the pooch belly. If you have like the pooch belly, then yeah, you need like that extra. And people are probably like, dude, it's not your swimsuit. It's not your place to stay. It's not your swimsuit. You don't get to talk about that. It just seems a little ridiculous. Like, guys wouldn't do it. It's ridiculous. Maybe they will. They probably need it. Yeah, you know what it is? It's like those people, but now it's the whole style. It's like those super duper fat people that tuck their gut into their pants. So you know what I'm talking about, where if for instance they were sitting there and it wasn't tucked into their pants, it would be hanging out the bottom of their shirt. So they take the bottom of their gut and they plug it into their pants. It's that, but now it's the style. Now everybody wears an extra 3 or 4 inches. So maybe it's just me. Maybe it's not. Maybe hopefully in 2022, the new style when spring comes out is not going to include the fupa pouch or whatever the fuck that thing is. The fupa pouch belly thing, whatever it needs to be. Dude, the first time I used the Apple update on my phone, was that not the most ridiculous thing you'd ever experienced? Oh my God. I thought the camera messed up, so I had to check everything. I apologize. I do not have a good relationship with this camera. We are still getting to know each other, and it seems like it's a little sensitive. A little sensitive. That's okay. All I was going to say is that new Apple update, it seemed like after I got it, all of the most inconvenient times they're asking me to read over new information about the app. Like, as an example, I'm jumping in my car. I just opened the Maps app. When I just open the Maps app, imagine what I want. Imagine what I think is going to pop up. The ability to direct myself via the Maps app, but it has new terms and conditions that you have to agree to. It seemed like everyone, my son, his mom is coming to pick him up, and I'm getting a message the first time after the update from his mother, and I can't open the messages because I have to agree to the new terms and conditions or whatever it was, whatever information they needed to update us on. It was the worst time. Like, I don't understand why we couldn't just be updated on that when we needed it. It was like, oh, the first time that you use any app after the update, you will now enjoy new information. And it's like, that's not the time when I'm sitting in my car trying to use it, and I'm probably just complaining about nothing. You know, it was one question I had. What is the appropriate amount of time to leave a pie out? Right? Because, like, okay, I don't know why, but for some reason, and it's probably why there's this, I think if you're ready to exercise and you're ready to get right with your health, you're just going to do it. I don't understand why there's all these people that decide, hey, come the first of the year, that's when I'm going to get healthy. That's when I'm going to take care of myself. But I just thought about it. It seems like it's weird that, like, during the holidays, we have this extra ability to just eat trash food. But I personally partook in that this year, and that's why I open up and saying that, is because, like, what is the appropriate amount of time to leave a pie out? Because I took one pumpkin pie, and I'm a loser. Because, dude, and I probably said this before, and it doesn't matter if I did. If I can buy a pumpkin pie that's a foot in diameter for $5, there's no way that my efforts, one, the ingredients are probably going to cost more than $5. Two, the amount of time it takes me, I would like to consider my time worth at least more than $5. So, for instance, if I see a pie that's a foot big at the holidays for $5, I'm gonna buy it. And one, I put in the fridge because I was like, well, I can't leave this out, right? Food safety says I got to put this away, so it has to be in the fridge. But if you've ever done that with a pie, the crust obviously was fucked. It was like completely, it was too, like, I bet if I had a knife, I could have cut it, but then you're basically just eating the pie goop out of a crust that's completely cold and almost like reforming to whatever it was before they put it on there. But you can't do that, right? So then the next pie I actually got, they had a leftover one, so I could get a pie sent home with me, right? And I left that one on the counter. But by the next day, by one day later, it tasted like shit. Like, I was like, did they poison me? Did they put poison in this pie? And obviously that's insane. Nobody would do that. That's insane to think. So I was like, it must be just spoiling. And people were probably like, dude, you are a dipshit. Look at the ingredients in pie. So many of them spoil. You know what I mean? It's probably like egg and like stuff that you can't just keep out on the counter. But I swear when I was younger, my grandma just had like food and pies just like sitting on the counter with like a small layer of foil on them, or like a small, saran wrap over the top of them. Like, is that not a thing? I don't know. I guess luckily I don't eat enough pies to know the etiquette, but I am curious what the etiquette is. Like, are you supposed to just put them in your fridge and then it destroys the crust, or do you leave them out and then they spoil? I don't get it. I don't know what you're supposed to do. I'm a moron. But yeah, I guess that's all. The only things I can think of. That's my banger of a closer. Yeah. That's what I got. No, I'm just kidding. I appreciate you guys tuning in. I love you guys. I hope you have an awesome day. I hope wherever you're headed is the right place. And I look forward to seeing you again next time. Thanks, guys.